Welcome, everyone, to Puckin Sports Network's Super Bowl post-game show, where we just break down our thoughts and what we thought of the game. This time of year, as soon as the Super Bowl is over, you ever see that meme where like Pablo Escobar is just sitting by the swing and then he's sitting alone looking outside his window? That's kind of like me after football's done. I just feel lonely inside. But I thought it was a great game. How I break down the game, you guys correct me if you feel that I'm wrong. Now, before I say what I'm about to say, I picked the Rams right from the beginning of the year, and they were my pick going into the Super Bowl. I thought they'd cover the spread. They didn't. There was a point in that game, though, where I said, that's it. They're not winning. The Bengals have this. They are in complete control. And it's at the point where OBJ got injured. The game flipped. And I said last week, my X factor, OBJ, because we knew Cooper Kupp was going to get double teamed, triple teamed, and OBJ was going to get a chance to make some plays, and he did make plays in that first half. Then he gets injured. The game flips around. The Rams can't get anything going. Their running game was terrible. And there was a point where Sean McVay, I think a reckoning came upon him. They were trying to get other guys the ball. Van Jefferson, Skronik. They were trying to get him the ball.
Skrolnik,
whatever. And, Kupp was double teamed. Cincinnati played it smart. We're not going to make this guy beat us. And it got to a point where McVay was like, it's not working. Let's go with the guys that got us here. And that's Stafford and Kupp. They designed plays to get Kupp open. And even when he wasn't open, he was able to make plays. And that's what got the Rams the Super Bowl title, because they were able to get it into the end zone at that point, take the lead, and then the defense took over in the end. That's how I break down that game. Sean McVay learned from his past mistake in the Super Bowl and said, let me go with what got me here and stop trying all this fancy stuff and going to all these other guys, because these are my studs. And that's who I got to go with to try to win this game. So I give him credit.
I don't know if you can use the word credit and Sean McVay in the same sentence. I don't know.
He's one of the best coaches, but you just don't. It's Bobby doesn't like him because he has to.
I personally listen. You and I sat right beside you. All right, and I know you. We saw the same game, and I don't think he called a good game. I don't think he called a good game up until 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. He kept going to the run. He kept going to the run and kept going to the run and kept going to the run, but it wasn't working. And yes, I'll give you that. The OBJ injury, and he was on fire. He was catching, like, the targets were going his way, and the more targets were going to go to him if he was still there, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? And that game could have been a blowout. Could have been with OBJ. And actually, I feel pretty confident saying so that was. But, we kept hearing comments through the night too. McVay's like out coaching himself. He's like, go to your bread and butter. You know what I mean? Like show some balls, make the plays that got you there. Go deep to Kupp. They were triple teaming Kupp, and he was still getting yards after the catch.
Yep.
It was just one of those years for the guy. So you force feed it to him, which again was the reason why they did what they did in the last 5 minutes of the game. And okay, because he called Aaron Donald was going to make that play on fourth down. They're hailing him like a genius. Like, I don't know. I think there's a lot of smoke and mirrors there. I think the real.
I'm not calling him a genius. I'm giving him credit.
No, not you,
for recognizing that I got to stop this, and he figured it out. Right, he went with what got him there, and I think that deserves credit. Although I agree, like you said, he did not call the best game offensively before that, especially after OBJ got injured.
My credit goes to Matt Stafford, because in 4 playoff games, he led the Rams to 4 comeback wins in the fourth quarter, which was their Achilles heel for most of the year. He did it 4 times when it made the difference. So, credit to him. So
3 times, yeah, but. Credit's a great word to use when describing Sean McVay, because he put this whole team on his credit card, and it's going to have to pay taxes soon on the fact that they've basically mortgaged their whole future. So I actually like the word credit.
But it worked.
It worked,
right?
And we'll discuss that, I'm sure. It must have been a tough game for him to call, since the Rams are not really a running football team yet. You kind of want to keep running the ball. They couldn't run the ball at all. So I give Matt Stafford credit for being able to perform with no running game. I didn't think he was exceptional. I thought he was good in the last drive. Cooper Kupp won them that Super Bowl, seeing as he was the MVP, and he was not very good up until that last drive. I think he only had like 50 yards, not because of him, because he wasn't getting the ball, the double coverage. But I got to give you guys credit. Speaking of credit, very rarely when we do these things, I am completely wrong and you two are both right. And so when it does happen, we have to point this out. We did start sit cut last week of Super Bowl cities, and I sat at Los Angeles and you guys both cut them. I thought there was no buzz in that game. The atmosphere was, correct me if I'm wrong, it was not good. I look at Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow gets the ball with a minute 30 left, 2 timeouts, down by 3. And that's a point where you should feel it. Like, you don't have to see buzz. You don't have to hear buzz. You know, the eastbound and down line with Will Ferrell. You know, I can feel it all the way down in my plums. I don't know if you've seen the clip. You should be able to feel the buzz. You should watch it. It's a good clip. You should be able to feel it. I felt nothing on that last drive. That's a huge moment with a upcoming star. It was like a steak with no sizzle. It was not. It didn't have the feel of a big moment to me.
It was half Bengals fans. There might have been more Bengals fans than LA fans, and it was in LA. That's what I'm telling you. It's not a great sports city. If we did another start, sit, cut sports cities, I'm cutting LA if it's on there.
Agreed. And it almost took away from the game because it wasn't. I wouldn't say it was a great game. I would say it was a good game, but it felt like a very pedestrian, run of the mill game, and it was like, if I were to give that game a rating, it'd be like a 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10. If it was a restaurant, I'd be like, yeah, that was good. I don't know if I'd go back I'm not craving it. So there's that. Yeah.
Kind of felt like a Sunday nighter in week 9.
That you know what I was going to bring up? That was actually, I'm happy you bring that up. I wonder how much of this was the divisional round was fantastic. The championship games were actually very good. Was there just nowhere for this Super Bowl to go? It was like at some point to top what we had seen coming up into this game. The NFL had set a very high bar, and I think it gave us a good game, but not really a classic that I think we're going to be like looking back on 5 years and be like, wow, that was
that's fair.
I
think like they tried to do a good enough job to hype up Joe Burrow as kind of the next one, Joe Cool and all of that. But, I think the NFL kind of, slapped their head when they saw Cincinnati make it to the Super Bowl, because you're missing that sexiness factor. Like, you're missing that Mahomes, you're missing that Brady, Rodgers. Like you like, it needs star power in that
but
game.
Burrow is becoming that though.
He's the making of a star,
and Chase too. But, I think that the stars were there, and they have T. Higgins. Like, the Bengals are kind of an exciting team.
Love T. Higgins.
I almost won the MVP
with that face mask that was undetected. Bobby, there was something else you wanted to highlight in the game.
So we talked about the game. No, I think we hit everything on the game, but I would like to talk about Sean McVay. And we talked, you guys gave him credit, and I made the little snide comment about the credit card. He has mortgaged this team's future. It was kind of the first time that I can remember where a team won a Super Bowl based off of going through free agency and trade. You don't see a lot of trades in football. Most teams are built through the draft, and that's how it's done. If you think about the Rams, quarterback was brought in, defensive lineman both brought in, cornerback brought in, wide receiver brought in. This team was not built through the draft. In fact, the Rams have not made a first-round pick since 2016, and they will not make a pick until 2024 in the first round. And next year, I don't think they make a pick until the 4th round.
Wow.
They have mortgaged their future. To win, was it worth it? Of course. They won the Super Bowl. But now there are reports that Sean McVay might actually retire and go into broadcasting.
What?
At
36 years old?
Yeah. That's what. And listen, it actually makes a lot of sense. Now he's up for a new contract. So there's two ways of thought. There's he's just trying to squeeze a little bit more money out of Stan Kroenke, who I don't think cares. Stan Kroenke's a billionaire. They're going to pay him whatever he wants. But what if he sits there and says, I've kind of mortgaged this team's future. I think I read a stat. They have like 15 free agents. They're not signing everybody. They don't have cheap labor to come in terms of draft picks. What if this team is just not going to be as good next year and going forward as they will be? And what if he says, maybe I just jump ship for a few years, wait till they kind of recoup all these draft picks and come back? I think there's a little validity to him saying maybe I step away from the game for a couple years.
I think it's far-fetched. I mean, you gave an explanation as to why it could happen, and it makes a little bit of sense. I still think it's far-fetched. I don't think it's happening. He's a young coach. He's got lots of years left in him. He might have leaked that story to gain a little bit of leverage, maybe.
Yep.
Agents do that all the time. So that I don't see that happening. I want to talk about Stafford. I'm hearing a lot of things that, okay, Matt Stafford has now etched his name into the Hall of Fame. Like he's going to the Hall of Fame. How do you guys feel about that? Because for me, I don't see that at all. Like I think of the Hall of Fame, you got to be a top player at your position for an extended period of time. I don't think Matt Stafford's ever been a top 5 quarterback in the league, ever. See, even this year, he had his best year. He was a top 10 quarterback. He wasn't top 5.
No.
So how do you all of a sudden make it to the Hall of Fame because you won one Super Bowl? I think he's got to do it more consistently. He's got to do it again. Probably got to win another Super Bowl appearance, something like that. Then we could start having that discussion. But as of right now, I don't think so.
See, the problem with this is this argument that, we've been having this in every sport. And I do think, I can't remember where I read it, but I believe, is it the Pro Football Hall of Fame is the hardest one to get in? If I'm not mistaken.
Baseball's pretty tough too.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's just all agree.
Hockey's the easiest.
It's harder than hockey. But what I'm saying is, it's like, we always have these arguments about players, and when the Hall of Fame comes up, it's like it's the Hall of Great now. It's not really the Hall of Fame. It's decent players get in because sometimes you start bringing the bar down, right? And then the conversation starts coming in, like guys like Stafford. Is he a Hall of Famer? He's in the same conversation. A guy like Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan was a better quarterback than Stafford at some point. He won an MVP. Stafford never won an MVP. No, I'm not saying it. It's things that I've read, things that I've like. How far down do you want to bring, the bar, right? Now, how much does that work against where he played? Stafford played in Detroit for the longest time. The hell did he? He did his best. He put up numbers based on the awful teams that he had, but I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. I just something about. I think he's 12th all time in passing yards. Does 12th get you in? I don't know. Does 12th get you in other sports? Is the 12th best goal scorer in the league in the NHL Hall of Fame? I think he is. But is 12th all time in hits in the MLB? I don't know. The number one guy's not in, but that's another story.
But also quarterbacks nowadays are such better passers than they were like 30 years ago, even 20 years ago, right? So I think all the quarterbacks of the modern game are going to be on that list.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that plays a factor into it too. I don't think he's not a Hall of Fame in my books yet. Bobby, what do you think?
You almost have to look at it comparatively of how are you within your generation? Because as we know, the rules have changed.
I agree.
You think about this 30 years ago, before Tom Brady went on this magical run, who was renowned as the greatest quarterback of all time? It was Joe Montana. Joe Montana's career year was 3,200 passing yards, which is, by today's standards, an awful season. Not even backups can throw for more. So I'm kind of with Frank, where I heard a saying, and I really like it. It's not the Hall of Very Good. It's the Hall of Fame. And it should be the elite of the elite. He's a very good quarterback, but I look at him and I say he's got one Super Bowl appearance, one Super Bowl win, unfairly because he was in Detroit. Would he have gone to more had he been somewhere else? Maybe. But you look at one Super Bowl appearance, guys. You have Dan Marino, you have Aaron Rodgers. I'm sure I'm missing a few guys.
Rodgers went to 2 Super Bowls.
Rodgers went to 1.
Did he?
Yeah,
that's right. Wow.
And when I think of those guys, I don't really think of Matt Stafford in that era of Marino and Rodgers were so great They won MVPs. They were in a level of their own, where Matt Stafford is in a level here to only go to one Super Bowl, to only have one Super Bowl appearance. I think that would be kind of the criteria. I'm with you, Joe. He has to go to another one to give him that edge. We talk about Eli Manning. I think Eli's a more compelling case of, is he a Hall of Famer? Because the guy's got 2 Super Bowls, and you cannot tell the story of football without Eli Manning. And I still sit here going, I don't know. I don't know if he's in there either. So I think the one thing I take away from this is that we always bang on athletes. You know, where you're drafted is where you should stay, where you should play. I'm off that. I've been off that for a few years, and this is the prime example of, if this guy had left Detroit earlier, who knows where his career would have been. Maybe he would have gone to 2, 3, 4 Super Bowls, and now we can talk about him in a higher legacy. We always bang on these athletes, but especially in a sport like football, if you go to some of these traditional disaster organizations, a la Detroit, Cleveland, Chicago, these teams that typically just don't have a ton of success, your legacy will take a hit. And unfortunately for Matt, right now his legacy is not there. He's got years to make this up. He's got probably 4 or 5 more years. But I'm with you, Joe. I think you got to go to at least one dance, at least show up to another dance.
If they're going to make a bust about you, a real life bust, and take the time to create that thing, you got to be worth it. And right now, he ain't worth it. Right? Okay, before we go, let's talk about the other guy.
Just to tie that up. Here's a quote. You guys have seen this from Richard Sherman today. He says, "The Hall of Fame bar is incredibly low now, like a participation trophy. No all-decade team, no all-pro, no MVP, one Pro Bowl, not even MVP of the Super Bowl. Never considered the best in any year he played. At least Matt Ryan has an MVP." That's Richard Sherman on Matt Stafford.
He's absolutely right.
He's 100% right. And Matt Ryan's not an MVP, not a Hall of Famer either. So
no, he's not.
Yeah.
I agree. Let's talk about the other guy for just a bit, Joe Burrow and the Bengals. Do you think they have a better chance of making it back to the Super Bowl next year or missing the playoffs next year?
Can I answer this first?
Of course.
Hell no. They have a better chance of not making the playoffs next year.
How about in the next 2 years, let's say? Because saying it, they're going to make it. Okay.
No, I'm going with, and in fact, if we were to do I was thinking about, we should be doing a want to bet under a half a Super Bowl for both these teams going forward, for Matt Stafford and for Joe Burrow. I don't know if Jolton Joe is going to go to another one. Maybe he goes in the next 5-10 years, but I just look at the roster. They were very fortunate this year. They were one of the most fortunate teams to make a Super Bowl, because I don't think they were a true Super Bowl contender. I still thought they were just not there yet, but they played well and they played great. But you look in the AFC, you've got to compete with Josh Allen. You've got Bill Belichick still. You've got obviously Patty Mahomes. You've got Justin Herbert. You've got the Denver Broncos, who are right now the odds-on favorite, a higher odds-on favorite to make the Super Bowl than the Cincinnati Bengals at the moment. Who am I missing? I'm missing guys like crazy here.
Basically, what you're getting at is the AFC is very tough.
The AFC is very tough.
Lamar Jackson.
Well, yeah, you got Lamar. You've got a bunch of teams that are very good, and I think that road, his division is going to be much better next year. I think Cincinnati's a great story. I like the team. I think if you had to pick Super Bowl or not playoffs, I would say they would be my team to kind of come out of the spot. And I would even say the Rams. I don't see the Rams getting back there next year to the Super Bowl or the next 2 years. So I would pick no for both.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a quick answer on that one. I'm the same, but I'll go in a different direction. I just think Cincinnati surprised a lot of teams. I don't think there's a surprise next year. I think they were taken maybe a little bit lightly, I think, as an underdog. And I just think that I honestly don't think their coach is good enough to coach above that next level to beat teams that maybe took them lightly. You know what I mean? Like, he got lucky. I just don't think Zach Taylor has that capability to beat, a Belichick or, an Andy Reid again. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't think
he beat Andy Reid, and he was 4 minutes away from beating the Sean McVay, like 4 minutes.
Well, I meant again. Like, just, you know what I mean? You know how you learn from that stuff. I don't think Zach Taylor doesn't seem like that type of guy, but could be wrong.
I thought they got breaks in every single game in this playoffs. Every single one. You have the Oakland game where they threw a touchdown about 4 minutes after the whistle stopped. Like Oakland had left the field, they threw a touchdown pass. You had Tennessee where Ryan Tannehill was an absolute garbage show. You had Patrick Mahomes who made an absolute utter mistake at the end of the first half, and you had the Rams who the receiver that was dominating the game gets injured and they can't move the ball. I think they got fortunate in all 4 games. And the only reason we are considering this is that's how great Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are. Those 2 guys are terrifying. And the only reason I would consider putting them back in the playoffs is because those 2 are 2 of the best players in their position. I would say Chase is a top already 3 receiver, and Joe Burrow is possibly a top 3 or 4 quarterback already. So those 2 guys are terrifying. And I still don't think that they have enough to get back to Super Bowl next year for sure.
Yeah, they're going to have a tougher schedule next year because they're the number 1 team in that division. So
good point. Great point.
It'll be tougher. All right, guys. Well, Sunday's just opened up. You can start booking some more functions, some more get-togethers with your other friends. No more football for another few months. But the good news is the draft is only a couple months away. And I'm sure we'll be discussing that really soon. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, like button, comment, give us a rating, all that fun stuff. And we really appreciate it. Thank you for taking your time and listening to us today.